It's Thursday, February 15th. I'm your host, Sarah Beal. On today's show, we talk to Town Council President Eric Steinhilber, Town Manager Mark Ells, and State Rep Randy Hunt. But first, let's get a look at today's top headlines. The Barnstable Youth Commission will again be hosting their Community Prevention Forum and 7th Grade Youth Summit. The Community Prevention Forum will be held on Thursday, March 15th at Cape Cod Community College in the Tilden Art Center. The public is welcome to attend for a presentation and open discussion with a panel of Barnstable police officers on what the trends are, what you should look for, as well as a Q&A. The 7th Grade Youth Summit will take place the next day, also at Cape Cod Community College, with Dynamic Influence and Kevin Rosario presenting, along with BHS Peer Leadership. There will also be presentations by many clubs, sports, and activities available when the 7th graders enter the high school in the fall. The Board of Health has announced that there will be a public hearing to review and discuss lifeguard exemption requirements. A public hearing will be held on Tuesday, February 27th at 3 p.m. in the Town Hall hearing room. The hearing will be held to provide citizens the opportunity to be heard. The current requirements for a lifeguard exemption can be viewed on the town website at townofbarnstable.us. Coming up next, Town Council President Eric Steinhilber. Eric, thank you so much for joining us today. Town Council meets tonight at 7 p.m. in the Town Hall hearing room. Not a huge agenda, but you are having two presentations this evening.
Yeah, thanks for having me. We are having two presentations tonight. One, they're both going to be by the town manager, Mark Ells. One of them is a presentation on the fiscal 2019 budget as it relates to restructuring within some of the town departments. And then the second presentation will be about our update on our comprehensive wastewater management plan. In the upcoming budget, there will be some expansion, initial phases of expanding our sewer system on some of the main roads in town. So this is a way to kind of update and inform some people of some things that will be coming in the next year.
Wonderful. Two important things to hear about. I know I've talked to Town Manager Mark Ells a lot about the restructuring that's coming up in the fiscal year, so I'm glad that the Town Council is going to get a full overview of how that's all going to work.
Yeah, we're looking forward to hearing about that. It's a lot more efficiencies within town government, and obviously, as most people are aware, the cost of providing services that people come to expect within the town go up every year. So the ways that we keep pace and counteract that is to constantly look internally for cost savings, for more efficiencies, restructuring, and also we constantly need to position ourselves for new growth within town, which will help alleviate budget constraints and also keep taxes in check for folks here in town.
Wonderful. Under old and new business, you just have one thing under each. The first thing under old business is the authorizing the submission of the growth incentive zone designation application. Will you be taking the vote on that tonight?
We certainly can. We had a joint meeting with the planning board 2 weeks ago. They decided they wanted to talk about it at their planning board meeting, which they had Monday night, and then made a subsequent decision to talk about it again on their February 26th meeting. Obviously, we're meeting tonight, and this particular item, because the way the GIZ is written within the Cape Cod Commission Act, it doesn't really matter which board votes first, planning board or town council. It's not like other things that would come through where we need to have the recommendation from the planning board before we can act. This is something where both boards have to vote. It doesn't matter which board votes first. So we may very well vote on that tonight.
Wonderful. I know that the public hearing is closed on that, but will there be discussion on it amongst the town councilors?
Oh, certainly. We actually can't deliberate and have discussion among the council until the public hearing is closed. So
right.
At the end of the last meeting, there were not any speakers left, so the public hearing was closed. And I'm sure various councils will have questions which will be addressed, and like I say, we'll have an opportunity to deliberate and ask questions, and we'll see how we proceed on that.
Great. Under new business, you have an appropriation and transfer order for the evaluation, design, and permitting of the renovation of the Armory building. What can you tell me about this?
Yeah, we're hopeful in the near term that we'll have some funding coming from the state to help with the renovation of this building. This is an asset that really has been kind of sitting for a decade now, and we've had some interest here and there, but nothing's really panned out. So we're really at a point where we want to make a concerted effort to kind of retool this property, whether we keep it for municipal use or we put it out for private use. The building needs a lot of work. Mm-hmm. So what this does is gets the building to a certain point. This is work that would have to be done regardless of what direction the building goes in. But it gets us to that point where then we can have some discussion about what are we going to do with this building? How is this building or this site going to be redeveloped? So trying to make a concerted effort to do that. We have other town assets, structures in town that we also are going to be talking about quite a bit in the coming year. We're going to have the asset management committee, which has been working on putting together a comprehensive list of all of the town-owned properties, mostly land, and we actually have parcels that are going out for bid now, where the public can bid on them, because if we don't have municipal use for them, the council wanted to put those out for bid, whether it's residential or commercial. So that committee has worked tirelessly really for the past year, along with staff, to get that list together, to get these parcels prepared to go out. So now that process is not necessarily done, but it's kind of over the hump, as it were.
Right.
I'm going to have them begin to look at some of the town structures in town and how we may repurpose some of the ones, for instance, like the Armory, like the Marston's Mills Elementary School, and start to have those discussions at a subcommittee level along with the town manager and his staff, so we can come up with some proposals and ideas that make sense for the town.
Wonderful. Eric, is there anything else you want our viewers to know about before I let you go today?
That's it. It's a short agenda, but we have some meaty stuff to talk about, and like I said, some of it is kind of preparing for our fiscal year 2019 budget, which we'll be starting to talk about in April, and we're looking forward to doing quite a bit this year to kind of move things forward in a positive way.
Wonderful. Eric, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Good luck at Town Council.
Thank you very much.
Have a great day.
Take care.
Bye. My guest today is Town Councilor Eric Steinhilber. Up next, I actually do talk to Town Manager Mark Ells about the work to be done on the Armory. Mark, thank you so much for joining us today. We have a couple of things to chat about. The first thing I want to talk about is Senator Julian Cyr has secured some funds through the capital budget, through the state capital budget, that hopefully will go through with the governor. And part of that is $1.6 million for the Armory, which is across the street here from Town Hall. What can you tell me about what, if we do receive these funds, what will happen with them?
Well, we acquired the Armory from the state, and with a lot of limitations on what could be done with the Armory. Mm-hmm. And we've gone through over a decade of RFPs, which is requests for proposals for different types of uses at the location. And there's a little history here. So in every case, because of the limitations, and in fact, we've gone back to the legislature and asked them to lift those limitations for specific types of proposals, but in general, there's still limitations on what we can do there. So we've got limitations. We've got hazardous materials in the building, mm-hmm. just like every building of that era have. Right. And then we've got major capital improvements. That's a 50-plus-year-old building. It's of the type of construction that, it's wonderful, minimal maintenance until it reaches the end of its useful life. Mm-hmm. And then it costs a lot of money to replicate, to repair mm-hmm. that. And we're actually seeing leaking in the roof. We're seeing windows are gone. The whole building needs to be repointed. All the systems are gone in the building. Not a lot different when they gave it to us, though. Right. It's not like we let it deteriorate. That's why they gave it to us.
Right.
So what's happened is we've been looking at what we were going to do with the Armory. And we've really come to the point of saying, we've got to do some basic stuff to make that facility usable either for municipal use or to put back out to RFP as a usable product. It hasn't been a usable product.
Right.
Each time they've come to the point and said, no, we're not going to invest that amount of money. In some cases, they offered less, hoping they could get it done, plus volunteers and all of that. And you know, depending on the use especially, you just can't.
Yeah.
And, you know, we're still the owner, we're still the landlord, so if something goes wrong, we're liable for that. So you can't enter into an agreement
Right.
to do something like that. So in discussions with Senator Sear, he had a fairly limited set of criteria for what he wanted to, or what he was able to put in a capital improvement project for. And this met the criteria. Actually, we had submitted several. This met the criteria. This is a portion of that budget to make the armory usable again. And we're looking a bare minimum about $2.6 million to invest. And then depending on what else we might want to do there, if we put in a large public meeting room with audio capabilities, would be adding costs there. If we did other functions there, we would add costs to that basic, get the systems functioning, new roof, new windows, pointing the buildings, removing hazardous material. And there is, if you haven't been inside, it's a typical armory, but downstairs is an old shooting range. It's a basement, but it's a large building downstairs. Upstairs is a large drive-in sort of area that there's actually there was a basketball court in there. And as you head back, there's classrooms and bathrooms and storage areas. So this is very helpful. We'll find out hopefully by the beginning of next fiscal year whether this money is actually there to spend. We're in before Town Council this week asking for some initial money to get going on preliminary design and hazmat assessment, looking at what we're going to need to do to remove that hazardous material. And then you'll see another request in the CIP, but each step of the way we really need to think through, okay, how much more money are we going to spend, and what is the outcome that we're looking to get to. And right now I've stated, and this is what we're doing, the outcome we're trying to get to is a usable building either by municipal or other through a lease. And we can't sell the building. We can't knock the building down without going back to the legislature to get a fairly significant change. And the building, though it's not designated historical yet, it probably would meet the criteria if we decide to go that route, but has historical significance.
Right.
So that's what's going on with the Armory. It's a positive thing. We're thankful that we have that opportunity to have another funding source, because obviously this is a significant capital project. It's a very important location in the downtown area to make sure that we have the right use there. It's along our Legacy Trail. It's in our downtown. It's close to the Hyannis Harbor. It's a very important piece of property certainly in Hyannis and in our community.
Yes, I'm very interested to see where this all goes. I started the same year that the town took over ownership of the Armory, so I've been here. I've heard all the different iterations of what was hopefully to be done with it, and from a performance hall to offices to a museum. So I'm really interested to see what happens with the Armory going forward. So I look forward to chatting with you about this, and hopefully we'll get those funds approved by the governor.
Yes.
The next thing we want to talk about is that the chief is retiring, the chief of police, Paul McDonald, and there will be a search for a new chief of police. What can you tell me about how that process
Well,
goes?
there is an ongoing search.
Okay.
The search will be internal first. This is a town manager hire. Right up front, I made the determination that I believe we have staff within our Barnstable Police Department that could be the next chief of police in our community. Therefore, we're doing an internal search first. It was interesting. We went out for an RFP late last fall to bring on a consultant because this is a significant hire and it's a very specialized area to be a chief of police. And so we were bringing in a consultant. We knew that there was question around whether this was a civil service position or not. Actually, the day before we issued the RFP, the state made the determination that it is a civil service. We received a letter from the Executive Office of Administration and Finance. The Human Resources Director under the Commissioner sent me a letter and said it is a civil service and you need to proceed under those guidelines. So fortunately, we had structured the RFP for the again, a request for proposal for a consultant to assist us in the hiring process, such that the criteria we used would allow us to use them in the assessment centers that civil service requires. And basically, they set up assessment centers and they evaluate the candidates. And so now it's a two-step process for us to hire a chief. It's not just us determining. Civil service gives us a list through this assessment center process. Civil service asks us to retain a consultant. They don't do this internally anymore.
Right.
You retain a consultant. The consultant's approved by civil service. Consultant follows civil service procedures, and they'll give me a list, and it has to be at least 3. So if we didn't get 3 candidates that were interested in apply, that would be problematic. We would have to go back out again and go through the process again. I don't know how many times you'd have to do that if you didn't have, you'd ultimately open it up to a broader range of candidates if you didn't have that. But so they give you back 3 ranked in order after you go through this assessment process. Then it becomes our process. And what I'm doing concurrent with this, because we're in the middle of doing this right now, it'll be done by March.
Okay.
Our chief is retiring in May. What I'm doing as soon as next week, I want to have a survey for our residents if they're interested to fill out and give me what they see, what they want in their next chief of police. I'm going to go out and I'm going to reach out to all of our civic associations, all of the major groups that we have out there, village associations. I've asked the superintendent of schools if I can meet with the students in the high school or any school that are interested in speaking with me. I'm going to the senior center to speak with our seniors. To find out, and I'm going to ask them, when are you gathering and can I come to your gathering? Because my experience is you hold these separate meetings and either people don't know about them or they can't make it, or I'd rather find out, okay, when are people together? Like the school day, there's lots of kids there at each of the schools. If I can go in and have an opportunity to chat with them, even if it's lunch or something. And seniors, okay, what's coming up? When is there a big gathering? So I'm going to try to gather information, and then ultimately I'll create a panel of people to do interviews of the final candidates, and hopefully we'll select a new chief in the relatively near future. And I've said, since I was notified by our chief that he was retiring, that in the event that we don't get there by his date of retirement, we'll follow his plan of succession. So he has, okay, if I'm down, then who's next?
Right.
And everybody will shuffle as per the plan of succession. That'll be a temporary change for the duration of however long it takes to fill the chief's position. Then everybody will go back to where they were.
Great.
So that's what we're going to do.
Sounds like a wonderful plan. Please let us know when you'll be sending out that survey. And
I will. We're hoping it'll be done this week.
Wonderful.
And so it'll be posted. We'll keep it up for a couple of weeks. and I just want to hear from people on what they see and what they're looking for, and it's their chief. I just get to hire them. So, and I know, in my opinion, our existing chief has done a fabulous job. He worked his way up through our organization. When the consultant met with me, they said, "How many sleepless nights do you have as a result of the performance of your police department?" And I said, "I haven't had one in 18 months. I don't know that I've had one in 6.5 years being upstairs as an assistant or so." For me, I felt very confident that the people we have are doing a great job in our police department and can certainly have this opportunity to, one of them, and really you're just looking at the deputies and the lieutenants that are eligible for this move. But then ultimately, if it occurs from within, there'll be internal promotions to backfill, just like they always do with positions. So.
Wonderful. Mark, thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thanks for having me.
Talking about these important issues. I really appreciate it.
Yep.
My guest today is Mark Ells. He's our town manager here in the town of Barnstable. Randy, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey, it's always good to be with you, Sarah.
Wonderful.
And once again, we have a number of things to talk about.
Yes, we do, as always. The first thing I want to talk about is you sent out a press release this week about local fire departments awarded state grants for fire education. I know this has to do with the Student Awareness of Fire Education program that many of the fire departments take part in.
That's true, and it's one of those programs that doesn't cost a lot of money, but when you're pretty tapped out at a local level on your spending, you try and fit some of these things in, and it's difficult to do without a little bit of assistance. So what we've come up with, there were grants that had to be applied for, obviously, and Barnstable Fire Department and Centerville, Osterville, Centerville, Osterville, Marston's Mills applied for grants, as well as Bourne, Plymouth, and Sandwich that are in my district. And we were able to get to these fire departments a total of almost $30,000 to help run these programs. The one aimed at students, the SAFE grants for students and young kids, has been phenomenally successful because they teach them how to stop, drop, and roll, how to report fires, how to get out of a home. They encourage parents to make sure that their kids know where the meeting point is in case there's a fire in the house. They also encourage, and I've done this myself in my own house, to have ladders available that you can hang on the window out of a second-story room in case your egress is blocked by the fire down the regular stairs. All of these things that we learn from these programs has actually contributed to a reduction of child fire deaths of 72% since 1995.
That's amazing.
So a little money well spent and big rewards.
Definitely. I know that the Barnstable Fire Department, they have a trailer that simulates smoke and has the kids try to get out of it while the smoke alarm is going off, and I know that's part of the SAFE program, so it's definitely being used, it's definitely being utilized, and I know they're doing their best to make sure that kids are aware. I know there's also another part of this that has to do with senior citizens, and I know the Fire Department has a very strong program where they go out to senior citizen homes and make sure that their houses are fire safe, their smoke detectors are ready to go. So I know that's another part of this grant.
That's correct. For the kids as well as elderly people. And COM, as you mentioned, they got a grant out of this total of about $30,000. They got a grant for the senior SAFE program as well. So yeah, it's when somebody becomes less mobile, that becomes a real issue. And also we have a system set up so that in the 911 those records include information about the people that are residing in the house, if they have disabilities, with being able to move around well. All that information can be recorded in the system, so when EMTs and firefighters show up at a scene, they'll have a pretty good idea of who's there, how how ambulatory they are, and to be able to take special actions when they're aware of it going in.
It's so important to know what the family situation is, so that's great that they're able to do that, especially with these grants. So thanks for making sure that these fire departments were able to receive these grants from the state. It's wonderful.
It's good.
Yes. The next thing we want to talk about is working on the budget up in the House. I know that's an ongoing process, and you're deep into budget season right now. How is that going?
Yeah, the process is that the governor issues the budget from the administration in the second year of our two-year session, which we're in. That budget bill is called H2. In the first year of the session is called H1, so something that some people might find fascinating as trivia. But more fascinating is the fact that we have a $40.8 billion budget that has been proposed by the governor. It is pretty conservative relative to calculating what our revenue growth is going to be. So that's a good thing, because we shouldn't overshoot that and then end up having to make drastic cutbacks later in the year. But the process between now and when we have our budget week in the House is that the House Ways and Means Committee is going to be traveling to several different locations around the state and having a hearing in the State House itself, taking all information from the public about various parts of the budget. We will, as legislators, get to sit down with the chairman of House Ways and Means individually and bring our priorities forward to the chairman. And we will also be afforded the ability to put in amendments to what the House Ways and Means puts out as a bill that we will work on and vote on in the last week of April. So that's the schedule for things. I would think that the contours of the budget that the governor put out will be very similar to the House budget. It's not like, the budget's dead when it arrives, nothing like that. Generally speaking, the administration's budget sets the stage, and then the House will do some things to it. The Senate will do their own thing, and in late May vote on their version of it. And then the House and the Senate versions theoretically are going to be reconciled over the month of June by a conference committee. And before July 1, we are supposed to vote and send to the governor's desk a final budget for fiscal year 2019.
It's quite a process.
It is a bit of a process.
Yes, it is.
And by the way, you can go to malegislature.gov, click on budget, and it shows you where we are in the process and all of the steps and all of the hearings and meetings that are involved with that. And it has a pretty good explanation of how the budget is put together each year. So, yeah, if you want to learn more about how that's done, malegislature.gov is a great place to search out.
Oh, that's wonderful. Another thing we want to talk about real quick before I let you go is you have been working on getting a deposit on the small bottles of alcohol, and I know that I believe this was an amendment.
No, this is a
okay.
freestanding bill at
Okay,
this
it
point,
is. Okay.
although it could be an amendment in the budget or something like that if we felt like that would be a better vehicle to go with. But what it is to simply add nip bottles, the liquor bottles that are under 100 milliliters, to the bottle deposit law. So there would be a 5-cent deposit on it. Realizing that a 5-cent deposit is not going to stop somebody from throwing a nip bottle out the window of a car, because having an open liquor bottle in a car is a far worse problem. But it will incentivize people to pick them up, and it does introduce, I think, in a broad way, the bigger discussion of underage drinking and driving, and things that we can do to perhaps curtail some consumption that is just feeding, unfortunately, people's own addictions to alcohol. And so we should take a look at that very carefully. So what we had happen was the bill was passed out of our Telecommunications, Utilities, and Energy joint committee, and it is now going to be assigned by the clerk to go somewhere else, and we will chase that, and hopefully, like Maine, who did pass the same thing up in Maine to start next January, we'll be able to do the same in Massachusetts.
That sounds wonderful, Randy. Thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate it and look forward to chatting with you again next month.
Very good. Thank
Thanks,
you, Sarah.
Randy. Have a nice day.
Okay, you too. Bye.
Bye. My guest today is Randy Hunt. He's a state rep in the 5th Barnstable District.